everybody. Thanks for being here. It's Thursday night. Man, we are Friday Eve, and it is a busy week. Super crazy stuff in New York City, the concrete jungle, where you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, and you can disappear like that. Don't take it from me, take it from the killer who shot that executive yesterday on the sidewalk, and now it's been 2 full days, and we don't have him. Or do we? Here's how things work. Sometimes you don't always know what the police actually have, right? Sounds like they don't have the guy, or do they? Do they know exactly who he is? And they're keeping it quiet so that he doesn't go underground. They're putting out these pictures. This is pretty darn clear, right? This is new today, smiling away with a full face showing, right? Yesterday it was just the mask. So are they closer to finding him? Because the things we're about to tell you tonight sure do point to that. I've got some experts, too, who've done this a long time. Gumshoe detectives with the NYPD who do nothing but homicide, who'll tell you what they think about where cops are and that guy. That's all coming ahead in just a moment. But also how New York City is so easy to disappear. I mean, have you ever thought about it? Just ride yourself into Central Park and poof. Somehow you can just vanish. There's so many ways to get in and out of Central Park. And then once you get out of Central Park, there's so many ways to get on a subway or a train and maybe out to an airport in 3 different states. Not to mention taxis, buses, Ubers, Lyfts. It is the easiest place to disappear. I'm going to show you all of that tonight, just how easy it is to commit and get away with a crime here. Then there's this whole notion of the messages that the guy left behind. We don't get this very often. We get clues that he didn't mean to leave. That's typically the way killers behave, right? Or she. But this one, this guy, he meant to leave the clues. He meant to leave messages inscribed on the bullets. Deny, depose, defend. Was that a message because it's a familiar phrase used about how frustrated we are, that health insurance companies deny and then defend their denials and then depose, right? Or was it a mistake? Because those aren't actually the words that are usually used. The actual words are delay, deny, and defend. Was he mixed up? Did he screw it up? Or was this a red herring? And that maybe this guy has nothing to do with insurance, right? Maybe this has nothing to do with the fact that this is the CEO of a massive insurance company who deny millions of people all the time. Maybe it's something else entirely, because apparently this guy had some trouble at home as well. We'll talk about all that. And then I don't know if you heard this, but when I did one of those spit takes, right? Like the milk went across the counter. Susan Smith apparently had some ideas about what she was going to do when she got out if she were granted parole. And if you are too young to know this, that lady right there, 30 years ago, as a 23-year-old, rolled her 2 baby boys into a lake, strapped into their car seats, and let them drown because she was having a fling with a guy who didn't like kids. And then she just wound us all up in the whole of United States and Canada, because that's where I was when this thing broke, and I saw it all, begged us to help find the black man that carjacked her. Yeah, she's a racist, she's a murderer, she's all that, and the parole board said no. But what were those plans? Here's a hint. Big TV show. She figured she was a shoo-in. Wait till you hear which one. Let's start here, though. Last night we talked a lot about what makes New York a criminal's nightmare. And the short answer is cameras, right? 15,000 at least everywhere. And those are just the official ones. But as day 2 of the manhunt for Brian Thompson's killer comes to a close, we cannot forget something else. New York is also a criminal's paradise. Like I said, if you can make it there, you can disappear anywhere. New York is condensed, it's congested, it's sprawling at the same time. People and traffic and packed sidewalks and streets, buses, subways, bridges streaming into the neighborhoods and the states and the boroughs all surrounding, and ports and commuter trains and Amtrak trains and airports littering this sprawl. Hence all the cameras, right? That's why you need them. Also, hence a police force bigger than many countries' actual militaries. Did you know that? The NYPD. More cops than many countries' militaries. And even though The hooded gunman who murdered that healthcare executive is still on the loose tonight. We know a whole lot more about him than we did last night. We know that last Saturday, 4 days before this, quote, brazen and targeted and premeditated shooting, the suspect actually checked himself into a hostel on New York's Upper West Side. The police say he used a New Jersey driver's license that was not his and shared a room with 2 other men that he did not know. Officially, the man in these photos from inside the hostel is called a, quote, person of interest, wanted for questioning. But police sources tell us that he's believed to be the guy they're looking for, the assassin. And he reportedly had come to New York days before that on a Greyhound bus, apparently starting in Atlanta. Whether he came from somewhere else before Atlanta, we don't know. But definitely from Atlanta to New York. Our team was at that hostel today, wanted to get a closer look. And you're going to see it's in a well-lit area here, right? About 10 minutes walk from Central Park. That's key. Police are also running DNA and fingerprint tests on a water bottle and a candy wrapper that they believe the shooter either threw out, would be just so stupid, or maybe dropped at the murder scene. Nearby, they found what may be the shooter's cell phone. Some say a burner phone, but the New York Times is reporting that police have not yet been able to crack it and get into it. We also have new footage from a cigar store on 6th Avenue, which is the major thoroughfare that the shooter used to flee into Central Park. This actually might be the subway stop. Like, he's emerging there, coming up the stairs from underground, right? Could be that he's at the 57th Street subway station a half hour before the shooting and coming out of the subway, getting ready to do what he did. And then we have this new image from a deli, which appears to show the suspect walking down 55th Street at around the same time. Same looking backpack, same looking hoodie. The attack, together with his getaway, took the shooter less than 9 minutes. That was it. He took up his position at the New York Hilton Midtown at 6:39 a.m. And 5 minutes later, Thompson approached from across the street from the hotel where he'd been staying. At 6:46, the gunman opened fire. Thompson fell, and the killer fled down a really big passageway between 2 buildings, wide open passageway. Chairs and tables and all sorts of seats and everything in there. Really busy passageway, usually. Apparently, he fled to a waiting bike that was on 55th Street. And 2 minutes later, he's seen riding into Central Park on Center Drive. But then what? Where does that arrow go after that little point at the end? More new information tonight. This time from a Nest camera. Footage obtained by ABC News appears to capture the gunman coming out of Central Park, way north, went into the 59th, came out at 85th, 15 minutes later. So 15 minutes in Central Park. If he had a bike, it would have only taken him about maybe 3 to 5 minutes to ride that. But did he stop and change for 10 minutes? Get rid of those clothes? Pack the backpack? Repack the backpack into another backpack? Did anybody see somebody coming out of Central Park? There had to be eyeballs amid all those cameras. We know about the woman in the shooting video. I originally thought it was a doorman with the long doorman coats. She was standing just off to the right there, and she was seen, right, sprinting off. Look at her, just flying out of there, understandably terrified as the gunman fired. Don't know who she is. Police are not saying whom they have or have not questioned, nor how much surveillance video they've been able to gather from all the businesses and the street corners and the passing cars. We don't know what they've collected. We don't know what they've watched. But I'm going to dig into all of this with a veteran detective from the NYPD in a moment. First, our Laura Ingle, retracing the killer's known path before, during, and right after the attack.
We're outside the Luxury Collection Hotel. This is the hotel where Brian Thompson was staying the night before he was murdered. And he left these doors at approximately 6:43 a.m. All of this taking place right in front of the Ziegfeld Ballroom. This is a very famous theater where lots of fancy movie premieres happen. So as we walk towards the Hilton, you'll see that there is a driveway right here. This is part of a parking garage with the Hilton Hotel, and it's probably where you saw that woman who ran away from the shooting. It's probably where she got into safety right through this alleyway here. So this is where everything happened. So we see the gunman walk up right here, come up onto the sidewalk, and he shoots point blank right here in front of those doors. Brian Thompson, you see him walking towards 6th Avenue this way, and that's where he shot in the back. And right over here, Ashleigh, right over here is where everything happens. You see him stumble, and he collapses right here underneath this light, right up against this wall, and that is where the gun jams, is where I'm standing right here, and he shoots him, and then he walks away, and we're going to take a walk through the passageway across the street where he makes his exit. Right across the street is the Ziegfeld Ballroom, and this is where the gunman exits. He comes across the street. We're on 54th right now, and this is the passageway where the suspect was seen leaving the scene of the crime. Now, you've heard it described as an alley, but take a look at this. This is really more of a passageway. We see this in New York all the time, this big, wide open space where people have lunch and where you have seating, and this is where he goes. So let's come this way, because we're going to walk you all the way to the other side of the block, because what he did was he exited on 55th. So as we take a walk through here, we're going to show you how he got up and over this concrete walkway. Are there cameras? I'm looking for cameras. All right, so now we're in the passageway between 54th and 55th. This is the passageway where investigators reportedly found some type of a phone. Whether or not it was a burner phone, we still don't know. But take a look at this. There are cameras everywhere through this passageway. So we're going to walk you down these steps, and you can see it's a pretty clean exit as you get to 55th Street. So down the steps he goes, and reportedly turned right. And as we come around here, you'll see it's always well populated here in New York in Midtown, and there's a camera right there on that light pole. There are cameras everywhere throughout this city, especially in Midtown Manhattan. A deli over here. We walk down to 6th. This is the route we believe he took. And as we walk over to 6th Avenue, this is where we're going to find the Starbucks. This is where we're going to find the city bikes. And this is where we're going to find the route that he took to Central Park North. And as we walk across 55th, we come here and we see that there is an area where there are city bikes. So we don't know at this point. Investigators have not revealed if he had a city bike ready to go, if he had his own bike maybe propped up here that he took off. And right down there is 6th Avenue, and that's where we're going to find the Starbucks and the entrance into Central Park. So now we are coming up on the corner of 55th and 6th Avenue. This is the path that the gunman is believed to have taken to get up to Central Park. So as he came up 55th, as you see here, it is very populated. You can see the Hilton Hotel down here. Our cameraman is going to push in, and you can see the Christmas lights. You can see the Hilton signage and the hot dog stand on the corner. And this is where he took his path, according to investigators. So we're going to walk around the corner now, take you up 6th Avenue, because this leads directly to Central Park. This is the route that he may have taken. If he took 6th Avenue, this is where it happened. We are on the corner of 56th and 6th Avenue now. We want to show you the Starbucks. That is the only Starbucks that is open at 5 a.m. in this area, and it is the Starbucks where investigators believe this suspect went in and purchased something before he went over to the Hilton to complete his planned mission that we've all seen on surveillance video now. Let's go across the street and show you what it looks like, because we've got the green. So we're going to walk across now. And we're going to show you what we believe to be more cameras in the area. We take a look here. I don't see any. You can see here, look at the store hours. This is the only Starbucks that is open this early in the morning. So it was a Wednesday, 5 a.m., and these are the doors that the alleged gunman walked through, ordered something, possibly discarded something. We've heard that investigators were looking through the trash, that they're looking for DNA that he may have left behind on some kind of a cup, maybe a candy wrapper. But it happened inside of here, just a few short blocks away from the scene of the crime. We are making our way towards Central Park. We have just left the Hilton, the Starbucks, the F train. Now we're going to take you up the path. This is 6th Avenue, and 2 blocks in back of me is the entrance of Central Park. And that is where investigators believe he biked into the park, and that's where they lost him. So now we're just about a half block away from Central Park. But I just want to point out another thing to you. Look at this. This is where the cameras are. The cameras are everywhere. They are outside of delis. They are outside of coffee shops. They are on light poles. They are places that you don't even know. This city is covered with cameras. We're going to walk you up to the park because this is the route that investigators believe the gunman took. Biking up 6th Avenue. This is the entrance to Central Park. Here we go. All right, so here we go. We are on 6th Avenue, Central Park South, going into Central Park right now. And as you can see, 6 p.m., 6 a.m. doesn't matter. It's always busy here. There's always taxis, there's always buses, and there's always people. So as we walk over here past Central Park South, take a look at this. This is an iconic scene that you see every single day. You see bikers with city bikes, you see the horse carriages, you see the hot dog stands, you see people that are milling around, and that's the thing. They are looking for anybody who might have a tip. I just talked to the NYPD. They told me that the smallest grain of information that anybody may have, they may have seen something, they may have noticed something, they may have thought it was insignificant, but they want every single person to call in that tip. They want to know what was seen that morning. If there's anything at all that you can provide, they want to hear from you because you might just have the clue that solves this case.
And Laura is live with me back on the streets of New York. Laura, one of the big questions I have for you is that there's information that comes in, it seems, every couple of hours, if not within the half hour. Is there anything new tonight?
Well, the thing that we're hearing tonight is that investigators, according to published reports, believe that this suspect came into New York City 10 days before this murder that happened right here behind me. We're right at the side entrance of the Hilton to give you that perspective. But they're asking anybody to come forward with that information. We've got the new information now of him possibly using this fake ID at the hostel. Still talking. We've been seeing investigators here on this block. I've seen them go into the Ziegfeld. I've seen them in that hotel where Brian Thompson stayed. They are talking to workers. They're talking to anybody that they can who may have seen something. And it's, just anybody's guess right now. But we know from those pictures that they believe that they have somebody in their sights because now we're hearing that he came on a bus, possibly from Atlanta. So that's some new information tonight. Ashleigh?
I keep wondering if they're canvassing all of the taxis, all of the Lyft and Uber drivers for their forward-facing cameras in that area at that time. I mean, so many civilians have it too. You just need to blanket the local news with the appeal for those cameras. Just jump in at any time if you hear anything new, Laura. Like I said, it's fast and furious. Those tips keep coming in, and so do the developments. Great walk and talk.
Absolutely.
That was so helpful to see how that all happened. Laura, thank you for that. I'm joined now by Phil Grimaldi. He is a retired NYPD homicide detective with 22 years experience. He now co-hosts the podcast Police Off the Cuff. Phil, I keep wondering, I said it off the top of this show, I keep wondering if the NYPD and any other agencies helping them know who this guy is already. And they just don't want to say they know because they don't want him going underground.
My opinion, I think it would be very unusual if they don't have his identification at this point. There was so much information that was between left at the scene, pictures, photographs. Now we have a very clear picture of his face. And that thing that you just played with Laura, that was great because that showed all the different cameras that are in the city. There's public cameras, there's city cameras, there's government cameras, there's all different types of stuff. Security cameras just happen to be everywhere. Post 9/11, the government put put cameras everywhere in Manhattan. I think that the detectives are leapfrogging from one camera to the next. They get him on this camera. He's going north, so they go a little further to the next camera. That's how they're putting his movements together, both before and after the incident that took place.
Okay, I've been wondering about your thoughts all day and what the NYPD detectives, the homicide squad, everybody is thinking about the messages on the bullets. It's just too obvious for me. It's too specific. I almost feel like it's the perfect red herring. If somebody wanted to take this guy out, maybe because of a custodial issue. Apparently he's separated from his wife. I mean, there are all the motives that are out there, right? Then you have 50 million customers who have probably at one time all received a denial with their health insurance, which makes your blood boil no matter how small. I just got one yesterday, multiple thousands. And I was frustrated as this story was developing. But if you leave a bullet with these words, and again, the actual words were deny, depose, defend, but the real words in the book and the theory are delay, deny, defend. It's all about how the insurance company, wiggles out of paying us back. Is it too simple to assume that this guy is avenging because of insurance company issues and that he would leave a message maybe as a red herring?
I thought of that myself. I said that earlier on the podcast that we did. The words deny, depose, and defend are found on the shell casings. That led me to believe, and early on yesterday, the NYPD released that they did have a theory and a motive. I think if it does turn out to be an anti-healthcare insurance activist type situation, perhaps part of a group that they're against the healthcare industry for different reasons. I mean, if you looked on social media today, there were a lot of people saying a lot of not nice things about insurance companies in the healthcare industry, and even naming Brian Thompson and his family, which I thought really wasn't very nice. But there are people out there that make these threats. There was some threats that were leveled against him. The company did investigate them from what we're hearing. However, I don't think that they thought that the threats rise to the level where he should have a security team. Had he had a security team, I did personal protection on the NYPD myself. They would have gone out, and before they brought the principal out, which would be Thompson, they would have checked the area to see if there was anybody lurking about. The gunman was there. We would want to find out, why are you here? What are you doing here? Something of that nature. However, it looked like he didn't have a security team with him. So the other, thing that kind of came up today that I didn't know about was that Brian Thompson, that executive, look, he led this massive corporation, right? But he was also known to be one of the guys who wanted change. He wanted to make it better for customers like me and like you and like those who keep getting these denials. So is it possible that one of the avenues of investigation might be other executives or even the parent company who wanted to change that and make sure the status quo stayed as is? Well, it's quite possible. And listen, he being the perpetrator, had sensitive information. He knew the location that he was going to go into. Now, that might have been public knowledge on a website somewhere, but he kind of waited in an area where he knew he was at the other hotel, got right behind him. He identified his target. He fired the shots. There was the gun jamming, the silencer, all of that. But it's very possible. And I think that we need to get hands on the perpetrator. Once we have the perpetrator in custody, he's a very dangerous individual. He killed someone very cold-bloodedly, so to speak. So we need to get him off the street. Once the law enforcement has him in custody, then they can start the process of doing the perpology. There's victimology of the victim, the perpology. Find out who he was speaking to, what were his movements. If he has a cell phone when he is arrested, the cell phone will give us a geofencing area of all the places that he traveled. So there's a lot of deep dive that's going to be done when he is taken into custody. His computer, his social media, things of that nature. Perhaps he has a criminal record. Maybe he has a propensity towards violence previously. All of those things will be looked. Then maybe we can find a connection to whoever else gave the information, the sensitive information. Perhaps it could be somebody from within the company itself or a friend, a relative, God knows who.
I got five seconds, literally 5 seconds left. Hitman or guy with a grudge?
I think it's a non-expert. The way he portrayed himself, he left too much evidence behind. A hitman would have done a much better hit.
Phil Grimaldi, I'm having you back. Thank you for this. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Still to come, cracking the killer's code. The assassin who did this terrible thing on the streets of New York sent a message written on his bullets. 3 words that no doubt speak to his motive. Or were those words supposed to throw us off his scent? What are the words? What do they mean? What's the background, the history, and whom were they meant for? Digging into that next. It happens a lot in the movies, but in real life, assassins rarely leave an intentional clue next to their victims, much less a full-on message. But the assassin who opened fire on the healthcare CEO in New York yesterday, he did just that. According to the police sources, the words deny, defend, and depose were written on the ammunition that was found at the scene. We know that 3 spent casings and 3 live rounds were recovered there, but it's unclear which ones had the messages. And we don't know whether the words were written on the bullets or etched into the metal. But we do have some idea of what those words mean. The phrase deny, defend, depose bears a striking resemblance to the phrase delay, deny, defend, which are 3 words that critics say big insurance companies like the one this victim ran use as their playbook, i.e., delay payments, deny the claims, and defend the delays and the denials. A highly critical book with that title was released in 2010, and we contacted the author this morning, but he declined to talk to us about it. So do those words mean that Brian Thompson, the victim, was killed by a disgruntled consumer? Or did the killer want us to be thrown off his scent? Joined now by someone who knows a lot about why criminals do the things they do. Robin Dreeke is a professional at this. He's a retired FBI special agent and chief of the Bureau's counterintelligence behavioral analysis program. Plus, he's a friend of the show. Robin, good to have you. Okay, so here's my question for you. I took a look at these words today, and I really I've just puzzled with them for a while. Deny, depose, defend is what the killer left. Mm-hmm. The actual playbook is delay, deny, defend. And I wondered if, since the insurance companies are technically trying to delay the payments, deny the claims, and defend those delays and denials, is this killer trying to say, you denied my claim, I deposed you, and now I'm defending what I'm doing by killing you?
Yeah, I think so. It might have been a play on that book. It looks to me like this is a very personal thing for this individual. And that final word there, depose, remove from office forcibly, rapidly. And I think it had a direct meaning there. And it's not just meant for Thompson himself. I think it's meant for the public at large. You know, this individual might have even seen himself as some sort of social justice hero in this as well, because his entire tempo and demeanor seemed to be pretty upbeat for someone who's about to do something so grave.
Also, we mentioned last night that the backpack he was carrying, the clothes he was wearing were all really expensive. The backpack was $300 if it's the right backpack, and it sure looked like it. The jacket he was wearing was pretty expensive as well. So I have wondered if this was, a social justice warrior or a disgruntled customer, or if it was an executive who wanted to change the course of what maybe this person was doing as CEO. I mentioned in the last segment he was trying to change things up at United Healthcare and make it a little easier on the customer to get their claims. And maybe parent company executives and other executives didn't want that to happen. Does that sound crazy?
At this point, nothing sounds crazy because there's a lot of things out there and there's a lot of data points coming in at us pretty rapidly. The concept of it being a rival CEO, it's a little bit more of a stretch for me because that individual has a little bit more to lose. I get the sense that this person already lost someone or something a little closer to him that made him such an icon to try to take action on this. And so, and again, your last expert, Phil, the murder for hire aspect of this, I'm not leaning towards that at all either. And I think this is extremely well rehearsed. And he had a lot of confidence in what he's about to do. I mean, you don't see someone smiling in any photo when he's about to murder someone unless they have a lot of reps and a lot of confidence in what they're going to do, but no experience having done it because he made a lot of missteps.
This smiling video could have been taken from a different time, though, because this one's in the hostel, and I don't know when it was taken. Definitely the Starbucks one, which is right before the killing, he's covered up, so we don't know. But I got a quick question on the red herring. Only got 5 seconds left. Could it have been a red herring, the message on the bullets?
Possibly, but I'm not thinking so. I think he wanted to really send a strong message.
Robin Drika, always love having you on. Come back again.
You betcha, Ashleigh. Thank you very much.
My great thanks to you as well. Got to take a quick break. Still to come, though, South Carolina's parole board said no. And with that, they dashed a convicted murderer's dreams of television fame. It turns out Susan Smith had a whole list of plans if the state had only just set her free. Up next, the network TV show that was part of the dream for the woman who drowned her 2 little boys in their car seats 30 years ago. Guess I don't have to tell you what show it is. This story next. To be fair, Susan Smith, or to be fair to Susan Smith, if the parole board had fallen for her little song and dance routine a couple of weeks ago, and if some fancy footwork had actually paved the way for her to waltz right out of that South Carolina prison, then she might have actually had a shot at what we're now hearing was her major life goal, trying out for a hit TV show. The woman who drowned her 2 young sons in their car seats 30 years ago is said to be devastated that her dreams of being on this show, Dancing with the Stars, had to be put on hold. I'm joined now by Gigi McKelvey, who's the host of Pretty Lies and Alibis, the podcast, which is awesome. Also a great YouTube channel. Okay, Gigi, dear Lord in heaven, I thought this was an Onion headline. It's not, but where did this idea come from if Susan Smith actually thought she had a shot?
Well, this came from one of the several guys she had been communicating with. Yes, several guys talked to Susan Smith in a, I guess, romantic way, and they were she was bouncing ideas off of him, what she would do if she were released. One of those, Dancing with the Stars. And she said, because Anna Delvey was on the show, famously with an ankle monitor, she thought people would love her on that show. I'm not sure what kind of reality she's put in her own mind that people out here like her. I can tell you, as a South Carolina resident, Ashleigh, she is the most hated woman in the state.
I mean, you know, Anna Delvey was a fraudster, but this is a double child murderer and then a racist to boot who wound us all up and told us lies. And there's not many more crimes you can add to her list of awful. So here's the deal. Was this just musings and jokes from her, or do we think she was really making some kind of a plan for outreach to the producers of this program? I want to be clear. The producers were not reaching out to her, to our knowledge. This was just in her mind.
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I think she has had 30 years to sit and think of what she might do when she got out. Nothing from Dancing with the Stars, obviously. It's a fantasy in her head. Among other things, she thought about trying out social media. If she got out, I guess maybe she watched some TV, saw it worked out for Gypsy Rose, thought she would give it a try. And get this, Ashleigh, an advice blog. She thought she would give people advice.
Dear.
Look, I would watch her on Dancing with the Stars if it were a clip of her face planting. That's about it.
So walk me through a little bit more about what you just said, the folks in South Carolina, because those parole board members are the folks in South Carolina. And I remember hearing about John Lennon's killer, a parole board member saying, look, he meets all the, he checks all the boxes for a yes, but who wants to be the person that lets out John Lennon's killer? Is that the same mentality among South Carolinians and in particular parole board members there?
I don't think so. I don't think she meets any of the criteria. It was very fast, unanimous no. Nobody in this town or in the upstate of South Carolina where I am and where she was has forgotten those boys or David and what she did to all 3 of them. And we're very protective here of our own. And so I just, everybody was so relieved when that parole was denied. Nobody thought she had a chance anyway. I mean, apparently she did. But none of us out here in the real world thought it would happen, and I don't think it's ever going to happen. These boys and David are so near and dear to all of our hearts here, and those parole board members are very familiar with this case. We lived it for a very long time and still do.
30 years. I mean, I'm glad that we keep bringing up the boys' names and David, their father, because that's really who we should be talking about. I just keep wondering how much more we're going to talk about her every 2 years. But I would talk to you any day of the week. Gigi McKelvey, thank you for this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ashleigh.
Host of Pretty Lies and Alibis. Check it out. It's awesome. Coming up next, a sheriff kills a judge point blank in his chambers, and months later, we still don't know why. But the story gets shadier and shadier every time we learn something new. Like today, word that the dead judge may have been caught up in that sex for favors scandal that was playing out there. And speaking of playing, we've got tapes you'll hear only on NewsNation next. United Healthcare CEO was gunned down on the streets of New York. The shooting that took our breath away was the killing of Judge Kevin Mullins right there in his own chambers. We know who fired those shots. It was on video right there. That was Sean Mickey Steins right there with the gun. He was the sheriff at that time of their rural Kentucky county. And he was also a close friend of the judge. And he's not a sheriff anymore. He's an inmate waiting for trial. But just like the CEO murder, the motive in the Judge Mullins case is a mystery, which means that the two men's long shared history has been under the microscope. And tonight, a gut punch of an exclusive to tell you about. It turns out there are recordings about the dead judge that tie him to some very dirty business in that county. A sex for favors scandal that sent a former deputy to jail and got the sheriff, who's now facing murder, sued in federal court. NewsNation investigative producer Allison Weiner uncovered these recordings, and she joins me live now. You're such a great producer. I mean, we send you out to dig this stuff up, and then I have to have you on television to report it. What kind of a recording are we talking about, Allison?
Well, these are recordings from the criminal investigation into Deputy Fields, the guy that went to prison for the sex for favor scandal. And Deputy Fields was convicted of rape 3, of sodomy, and also of perjury. So the recordings are from his victim. And she subsequently has filed the civil rights lawsuit in federal court. The victim is Sabrina Atkins, and she was interviewed by police about what had happened to her when she was an inmate in Fletcher County in Whitesburg. And that's where Sheriff Stein was working, and also where Ben Fields was working. And these recordings, I was listening to them, and I just sort of stopped and was like, I'm beginning to see that Sheriff Stein's life was coming apart, like sort of one block at a time. And this was not a good thing that I was listening to. And let's take a listen to it, and then we can talk about it.
He does have some videotapes of some stuff in the judge's chambers.
What kind of stuff?
Just with girls, sexual and stuff.
What describe? Have you seen the videos?
I've seen one partly, just him having sex with girls for to be able to get out of jail.
Who was having sex?
Ben and just some higher ups up there.
Who?
The judge and.
And you saw the video?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you see on the video? I mean,
I've seen Judge Mullins having sex with a girl.
Who was the girl?
I don't know. Because I don't know a lot of people from over there.
Where was it at?
In his office, in the judge's chambers.
Is that the same place that you were meeting Ben? Is that how you know it was the judge's chambers?
Yeah.
And this was Judge who?
Mullins.
Allison, wow, that's pretty clear. That's her saying Judge Mullins was having sex with these people in his chambers, just like the other deputy. Here's the question I have, because it seemed to me that it became an open secret among female inmates that you can sleep your way out of jail because these men and these higher-ups, not the ones necessarily on the screen, this is an allegation only, will have sex for these release favors.
That's correct. And by the way, the Sheriff Stein denied during his deposition, which was a couple of days before the murder, that he had he had any idea that any of this was going on. But the fact is that the plaintiff in the lawsuit, again, Sabrina Atkins, said that she had heard rumors and that you could exchange sex for not having to wear your ankle bracelet. She didn't say that specifically, but for some favors. And that's exactly what ended up happening, because she couldn't afford to pay for the ankle bracelet. You have to pay for the ankle bracelet weekly. And those are the allegations in the civil lawsuit, that Sheriff Stein should have known or knew about what was happening with Banfields. And Sheriff Stein is the big name in that lawsuit. It's Sheriff Stein and unknown superiors and Banfields. So he was facing some heavy damages and the loss of his entire career based on this civil rights lawsuit. And frankly, the plaintiff's lawyers told me, Ned Pillersdorf has told me several times, because it's like they were running a brothel out of that courtroom.
Unbelievable. Well, I feel like it's just the tip of the iceberg, because there's still a lot more to connect Stein's allegedly murdering the judge based on what the judge maybe would have said to bring Stein's more into this picture. So you're invited back, anytime. Just knock on the door and you're on. Allison Weiner, great job. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We just send her and she comes back with the goods, let me tell you. Okay, up next, the quickest way to wind up on Santa's naughty list. Not to mention his stupid list, if he actually has one of those, and I suspect he does. A shoplifter in Virginia could have picked any other store in town and probably gotten away with his crime, because all the cops in this town were actually at the store that he chose. It is the season for holiday greed and really, really dumb decisions, which I am going to show you next. Lots of towns have Shop with a Cop events at this time of year. It's where police officers pair up with deserving kids. The kids get gifts, the cops make friends, everybody wins. Almost everybody wins. Not the guy who showed up at a Shop with a Cop event in Virginia, though, the other day. He didn't win anything except a one-way ticket to jail. And here is why. Despite the fact that the Walmart was literally teeming with Chesterfield County police officers, dozens of them, and despite the fact that more than 30 of their cruisers, marked cruisers, were out there in the front of the parking lot, they say Hector Maldonado decided that was where he needed to knock out his shopping list without actually spending any money on that shopping list. Cops say that Maldonado tried to steal almost $1,400 worth of merchandise, with almost every cop in the county surrounding him. Shocker, he was caught, charged with grand larceny, a felony. So Hector's holidays may not be so merry and bright this year. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Hector may not be so bright every year, in fact. Quick note about tomorrow. This coming weekend is a 44th anniversary of the killing of John Lennon. Everyone's going to gather in Strawberry Fields in Central Park. They do every year to honor, this terrible thing that happened. And tomorrow on the show, I'm going to talk to someone I've kind of always wanted to talk to. And he finally agreed. It's the doctor who tried to save John Lennon's life. I want to know all about that. What happened when John Lennon got to the hospital? That's all coming tomorrow. So make sure you join me right here on Banfield. Meantime, thank you for being here tonight. We're also going to follow this incredible story of the hunt for the killer. First 48 ends tomorrow morning. That's big. Meantime, stick around. Cuomo's coming up next.
All right, Chris Cuomo here. Got to roll up the sleeves. Welcome to NewsNation. We have new information about the murder of the United Health CEO. The biggest question right now is, to me, not where is the killer? We'll get to that, of course. It's a manhunt. Got to find him. But whether the assassination of Brian Thompson is a one-off or only the beginning. We have an insider with some outsized concerns about what may happen next. Why? Well, is this the fruit of the poisonous tree of all this talk about anti-establishment and anti-corporations? Maybe. We'll discuss that. But here's what we know about the state of the investigation. Was the killer a New Yorker? Seems no. He arrived in New York City some 10 days before the assassination by bus. Bus is smart. Why?